Catus, Maximus here. You know, I've done videos about some of the more premium Craftsman pliers, but it must have been a comparison video because I just couldn't find one talking about what I believe to be the last of the Western Forge, the final American-made Craftsman premium, in this case, side cutters and integrated needle nose cutters. Or these might be called electrician's needle nose. There's two styles of needle nose. There's ones with cutters and ones without cutters. Like the Harbor Freight Icons, the Channel Lock 3017s. I guess they're just slightly heavier duty. So the last of the American-made ones, these are the last of the Western Forge. We can just see our little WFs right there. Kind of cool to find these. You know, people I complain about the quality of side cutters, and they are more of a blunt instrument. They're not made for super precision cuts. They're made to be heavy duty cutters for cutting general purpose, steel wire, copper wire, etc. But these are, even though they've been a little bit rusty, basically never used. And I always use this. I found this cotton packing is a really good test, that if you have a decent pair of side cutters, it should basically just cut it. There might be a couple little boogers or something that will happen, but generally speaking, the fibers are just so thin in this cotton that it really shows up if you have a misalignment of the jaws, or if you happen to have some damaged ones. If we get a little deeper in the jaw here, we get about the same effect. So they don't have the absolute perfect sharpest teeth, but these things are definitely pretty reliable. The big deal is really having hard teeth here with a little bit more anneal, or not quite as hard on the upper part of the jaw, just so you have less likelihood of them getting fractured. Now, there has been a change from older pliers to newer pliers, and that's the rivet size. And what I call these is small rivet. Not very big a rivet in there. I mean, these are hot riveted, so the rivet is put in hot and smashed down, and as it cools, it shrinks and gives you a nice tight fit. I mean, these things are like brand new. I just oiled them, so they actually work pretty smoothly, but absolutely no play whatsoever. But they do have kind of smaller rivets, and I don't know if that's just mainly because it's a little bit cheaper, a little bit less machine wear. You don't need to have as big a machinery and as heavy-duty dies to smash in a smaller rivet, or maybe it was partially just to reduce the side profile of the actual pivot, or maybe to increase the thin wall. When you use pliers, especially cutters like this, if you're cutting something really thick, maybe even using two hands or even using cheater bars. I've seen cheater bars using side cutters. Either the jaw breaks off or it'll crack right around here, just right in this thin area. So I don't know if that's the other reason they went with thin rivets. The reason I say that is I do have a very old school set of Craftsman Vanadium. I mean, we know these are old school because they have the old school like angled logo. And if we look here, there is a huge difference between the size of the rivets on both these pliers. These are both similar models. They're both cutters. Of course, on the newer, well, I shouldn't say of course, but on the newer one, a little bit wider of a gap. As far as how the teeth are, they did change that from the very old school ones where it was a crosshatch diamond pattern, which I like for gripping, but it tends to wear out more quickly. This is just a more modern straight across, which gives you a little bit thicker teeth, and they actually tend to hold up a little bit better. And I guess the last real difference between the old school ones is that we can see the old school ones do have a slightly, a bit thinner of an edge. I think these are ground more inwards here, just so there's a little bit more meat there, and actually the cutting edge is probably a little bit more durable and stronger on these newer ones. But I do like these older ones just because they'll cut flusher. I mean, you can see that there's probably almost a 1/16 of an inch of difference from cutting with these versus cutting with these. So anyway, just had a little opportunity to do a little comparison here. These things are still oily. And they do have more modern wide handles. That's probably the last thing. One of the things I like about it is just that, part of the issue with old school pliers, I mean, I do like the handle pattern, but that is pretty narrow, especially if you have cold hands or you may grip these in just an awkward position. It may be like right on your knuckle or something like that. These thin handles sometimes can pinch and hurt, so I do like that the wide handle on these. And the same thing goes with the channel locks. Although the channel locks, in my opinion, were better than any of the Craftsmans, whether they're the old Craftsman Vanadiums or the newer Western Forge ones. It is tough to beat a classic Meadville channel lock, and so I just brought these out just to be able to compare to the Craftsmans, and these are old school large rivet channel locks. Anyway, I guess I'll do a little comparison with the side cutters here. They are basically bog standard. Western Forge probably made a lot of side cutters for a lot of different companies, and they are very little difference between different manufacturers of those. I mean, these are really similar. I have a couple of the usual suspects. Got a set of Protos here, and got a set of American-made Crescent Crestalloy ones. And I guess the one difference on some of these, like these old Crescents, I mean, the handle length, they're the same class. The Crescents also have a wide handle. But what the Crescents do is the head's just a little bit thinner this way. And they make up for it by having just maybe a touch more jaw width. But otherwise, it is surprising how almost exactly the same these are dramatically different competitors. Craftsman, Western Forge Craftsman, Crescent, and Proto. And as far as side cutters are concerned, they're going to be dimensionally nearly identical to each other. Just as long as you get a halfway decent set. Anyway, I'm tired of blabbing about these Craftsman pliers. Just haven't had a video about specifically two of the most common ones. Side cutters and needle nose. Last of the Craftsman Western Forge, Craftsman USAs. I mean, these were probably made sometime in the 2000s, I suspect. Anyway, thanks for watching. See you next time.